Captain John Hayes, a civilian broadcaster before the war, was called on to establish AFN and persuade the BBC to give up its monopoly on broadcasting rights in England.
The BBC said, "We don't want it." Ike said, "I'm going to have it." So Ike had it, got it, and the BBC had to give way. Once the BBC gave way, it was very helpful in every way.
To the popularity of Jubilee.
One of the concessions Hayes made with the BBC was exclusive rights to some of the popular American radio programming, like Command Performance.
Command Performance USA, the greatest entertainers in America, as requested by you, the servicemen and women of the United States Armed Forces throughout the world. Introducing your master of ceremonies for this session is kind of a tough job because, well, he's such a stranger to Command Performance. In fact, he hasn't been on the show since an hour before he left for the South Pacific.
This is Bob, Command Performance Hope, telling each Nazi that's in Russia today that Crimea doesn't pay.
And Mail Call.
Mail call from the United States of America. Stand by, Americans. Stand by, servicemen of the United Nations. Here's Mail Call, selected by fighting men as one of the 3 top radio programs presented regularly by Armed Forces Radio.
One of the ways in which AFN managed to persuade the BBC to agree to its existence was that it said, you shall have first choice of all the top stars who come over. Bing Crosby, Dinah Shore, Bob Hope, any of these people who come over to broadcast for us, you can have first listen to them.
The GI Journal.
With the BBC now on board, the next challenge facing Hayes was finding the talent. Searching through military records, he came across more than a dozen names, broadcasters from the civilian world already in uniform.
I was in the Army. I was inducted. I had my basic training. And I was sent to England and to report to APO 887 and to report to Captain John Hayes. John Hayes met me and he told me that they were going to begin a broadcast network in Europe, and it would be called the American Forces Radio Network.
Captain Hayes, who had been appointed to start AFN, went through personnel files trying to find former broadcasters so that it would make his job that much easier. And I was one of the fortunate ones who was chosen, and I had been in broadcasting for maybe 2-3 years prior to my going into the military. And but we had all had some broadcasting experience. Some of us had much more than others.
Well, we've received our green light. Our orders are to establish an American radio service here in the East Field.
That's the thing we've been waiting for.
The initial plan was to have AFN broadcasting to the soldiers across England from London with a network of 50 transmitters carrying the message as far north as Scotland and as far south as Brighton Beach. Huddled in the basement of the BBC studios at 11 Carlos Place, AFN's first temporary studio, a handful of soldiers and officers would change the face of broadcasting in Europe. It was Corporal Sil Benkin who signed AFN on the air July 4th, 1943, by uttering 7 simple words.
This is the American Forces Radio Network. And then we told them what the program was going to be that night, and we went through all the programming for that evening. The first night it was from 5:45 until 10:30. We were on the air just that period.
She's on her way, men. From us to you, every week till it's over there.
Here's Jill and the G.I. Jive.
Hi, you fellas. This is G.I. Jill with G.I. Jive.
Mother says it's in the groove. Daddy says it's hot. Backwards, it spells Elabooze. Now, brethren, what have you got? You've got Jubilee!
As AFN was bringing the sounds of home to soldiers in England, Hayes was looking for bigger, better, and safer studios for his broadcasting soldiers in London.
We came to 80 Portland Place, which the Americans were already broadcasting in Carlos Place, and they got this other building in Great Portland Street, number 80, which was empty at the time, and turned that into a studio, 2 studios and a control room.
Life during the war years in London were heady days for AFNers at Portland Place.
He was a famous trumpet man from the Chicago way. He had a boogie style no one else could play. He was the type of man that is crafty. And his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a common reveille. He's a boogie woogie bugle bob company man.
We lived like civilians, English civilians. Each of us had our own apartment. We even had English ration books. But we also had the right to go to the mess hall, which I recall was at Green Street. So we lived like civilians. We were sort of civilians, hybrid military people at the same time. And when you got through work, you'd go home or do whatever you wanted to do. And home was whatever apartment you lived in London.
Every day when I went to the studios, on Thursdays, I would see a line formed in the building next to us. And it was right next to the studios. And when I went over and asked one of the people there, I says, what goes on here? I said, I've noticed this a couple of weeks that you've had lines waiting to see somebody. And she said, well, this Mr. Winston Churchill comes to visit his daughter, Sarah Churchill. And she lives in this apartment building right next to our studios.
Churchill wasn't the only brush with greatness for Benken. As talk of an invasion heated up, stars from all walks of life made visits to the camps where soldiers were training to help keep morale up. In 1944, Bob Hope and Jerry Colonna joined Benken on the air for a live show from the Queensberry Club in England. It was also Glenn Miller and Marlene Dietrich.
I had hardly thought it possible that entertainment of such high caliber could be presented out here in the field.
AFN even had its own share of stars on staff, including actor Broderick Crawford and movie director Josh Logan.
Night, Jack. Best of luck, gang.
The high-profile positions at AFN soon attracted attention in Washington, where regular Army officers looked on with concern at the apparent lack of military discipline.
This is the American Forces Network.
He said, you got writers here, you got announcers here, you got producers here, you got actors here. Ain't you got no soldiers here?